So touching back on hormetic stress, I want to make sure we touch on your favorite hormetic stressors. And then I want to talk about biohacking and then try to be respectful of everyone's time. And if there are any questions, I'm trying to make sure I'm looking for them as they are popping up. Ben and Anna.
Well, for me, one of the hormetic stressors probably is the cold shower. But the first one that I love, because I am definitely a hot weather over cold weather person, is the infrared, like doing my infrared workouts and red light. I have my red light that's in my bathroom. So that's part of like that prepping for the day, ending the day, opening and closing the day ritual that I have. But definitely the heat, that 100 degrees sweat. I'm not like you guys, gentlemen, I'm telling you, and Cynthia, like I am a foodie through and through. I will devour books and sit on the couch and have a glass of wine. Going to the gym is never my favorite thing. Leaving it is always.
Well, it's interesting. We're in a new, and it's interesting. We're in a new city. And so we've had to find all new places. And so I took my first yoga class in a studio in 2 years. And when they said hot, I thought they meant 90 degrees warm. And I walked into the studio and it was like Morocco hot. And I told my husband, I didn't even move and I was sweating buckets. And I said, at the time I was so hot, it was incredibly unpleasant. However, I felt amazing afterwards. I was like, okay, I need to do more of that, even though at the time I was not happy in the class. Right. And this is what we're talking about, finding things that appeal to us, make us feel good, but push you outside your comfort zone, because that's when we grow as individuals.
So true. Yeah. Red light therapy. When I do that, I feel incredible. 10 minutes of red light therapy, or even just going outside and getting the sun, it always charges me up. And I've been experimenting with taking methylene blue, actually suppository methylene blue right before red light therapy. And my brain just lights on fire. I just get into deep work. I've also been experimenting with energy bits, like spirulina with red light therapy, or even getting sun, and it like charges me up. And I love that. And the red light therapy is a hormetic stress, doing deep massages, getting them deep massage, deep tissue work. That's a hormetic stress. Working out. These are positive stress that forces your body to adapt and get stronger. So yeah, find what works best for you. We're kind of sharing what our favorite are. I don't think Thomas shared what his is, but yeah, Thomas, what are your favorite hormetic stressors?
I try to make life a hormetic stressor. First one is having 2 toddlers in the house. That's probably the biggest hormetic stress. That's an actual stressor. But again, so with hormetic stress, I mean that kind of literally. I really do try to make everything a little bit more difficult. And I feel like if you're consciously making things more difficult, and I'll get down to the specifics, but consciously making things more difficult, that conscious period of your time that you're making things more difficult is probably only amounting to maybe like 5% of your like waking hours of your waking time. So the rest of the time that you're not paying attention to what you're trying to make more difficult is, in my opinion, when you're just kind of on cruise control. And that's when the benefits of a hormetic stressor kick in. I mean, yes, the benefits of a hormetic stressor will certainly kick in when you are under stress load, without a doubt. But where we really want the benefits is when we're just cruising through life and not thinking about it. And we're passively be able to adapt to stress because we're not thinking about it. It's when we're not thinking about it where the stressors become a problem, when we become reactive because we're not consciously thinking about it. It's how you are when you're dealing with, the background noise. And that's how you want to be able to adapt to those things. So mentally, things like that. I'm a big, I like infrared sauna, but I'm much more of a dry sauna guy. I have a sauna at my house, a sauna at both my houses. So I just like always, and I rig it so that it gets exceptionally hot. Now, I don't recommend everyone does this, but I've basically rigged the system so it gets up to about 240 degrees, which is extreme. So I would not recommend people do that. But anything north of 200, I think is really where we should be. Most legal limit is like 190, I think, on the manufacturer side. So I guess, for all intents and purposes, just know that is not exactly what you're supposed to do. But dry saunas are where it's at for me because I'm really going after much more of a heat shock protein effect, whereas infrareds are a little bit different in terms of how they react with the cell. The downside with a dry sauna is, of course, you need to have like a dedicated circuit, and you need to really like plan for it. It's a much larger undertaking to set one up, but it's such a big part of my life. I don't own a cold plunge, but I'd say once or twice a week, I just get bags of ice and put it in my bathtub and just do that, just because I do feel that it's important. Another thing, I live at close to 7,000 feet when I'm at home. I live in the Sierra Nevadas, so I live at altitude anyway. So I am a big fan of hypoxic training. In true hypoxic training, there's some products out there that can create a hypoxic situation when you're working out, like Live O2. It's pretty expensive, but it does get the job done for people that are into that. So, where I live, I can be living at 6,800 feet, but being at the Tahoe Basin, I can go up to the top of Mount Tallac and be at 10, 11,000 feet and still do my training up there as far as endurance work, running, and things like that. So hypoxia is really one of the biggest pieces that we're after as far as the brain is concerned. And when you rebound from hypoxia and you have sort of this contrast effect with more oxygen, it's exceptionally good for the brain. It's almost as though you're going into a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. You're creating your own hyperbaric situation by going from oxygen deprivation into oxygen enhancement, if you want to call it that. So that's a very big piece for me. I'm also a big fan of just very, very, very intense exercise. And that's as a hormetic stressor, exercise, yes, but then occasionally really just taking one day all out 95% to the max. So I take everything a little bit extreme. But I almost come from the school of thought where if I'm not feeling it and if I'm not getting that effect, then that means that's not quite hard enough, because the purpose of the hormetic stressor is that it's going to get easier each time you do it. So unfortunately, it needs to get tougher each time. And it's not like you just learn to do a hard workout and then just do that same level of workout every day. It's like, unfortunately, you do have to continue to push. It has to suck each time. And it's like, if you go normally ride a bike and then you go run, that run is going to suck. But if you keep doing that run for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, then all of a sudden it's not hard anymore. Well, unfortunately, that means it's time to go back to cycling again, because then you're going to hop back on that bike and it's going to suck. So it's pick your hard, right? You can have difficult concentrations of workouts, difficult concentrations of stressors, or you can have difficulty with life because you're unhealthy. So it's like, I always say, pick your hard. Just choose which direction you want to. You can be in control of your hard, or you can be out of control of it. So yeah, just make everything hard. Take the stairs, start arguments with random people. Yeah, that's that.
No, and I love your transparency, Thomas, and I admire your dedication to picking your hard. Here I am thinking like, I did this tough HIIT workout, and then I hear that and I go, okay, it's all relative, right? So for anyone that's listening, one thing that I want to point out as a distinction is that men and menopausal women have the ability to push their bodies pretty more consistently in terms of effort than women that are still at peak fertile years or in perimenopause. And why do I say this? And Dr. Anna can also speak to this, and all of us can speak to this, is that, in a woman's menstrual cycle, there are periods of time where we can push our bodies harder. And then there are periods of time that we have to kind of back off on the intensity. And so, always when we're talking about women, we're really talking about the ideal days where we can push our bodies the most is usually the beginning part of our menstrual cycle, especially days 9 through 14. If you have a 28-day cycle, this is when, we get peak testosterone, estrogen predominates in the follicular phase, which is the beginning part of the menstrual cycle. And then as we get closer to menstruation, in the latter stages, the luteal phase, interestingly enough, this is when progesterone predominates, and we just don't have the ability to push the fasting needle, the exercise as much. It doesn't mean you're a couch potato and you eat all day long. It just means you're not able to absorb as much stressor. And interestingly enough, today I was looking at a statistic that was saying that women consume 260% more refined carbs during their luteal phase. And I thought that was fascinating. And I don't know if any of us find that surprising, but I know that there were definitely years of my life that when I got really close to my menstrual cycle, I felt like I could probably eat any and all carbohydrates, although at least by then I was recognizing what was happening. But I find it really fascinating that women's bodies, when they're still in their fertile years, they have to be more attuned to where their hormone balance is and how much of an effort they can push.
That's so interesting. That makes sense. The innate intelligence, it wants to make those hormonal conversions. I mean, you two could speak really brilliantly on that, but it makes total sense. You want to build progesterone, and fasting and ketosis is not going to really do that. So the innate intelligence is like, go get those carbohydrates and make those hormonal conversions. So that's very interesting. That's statistic.